5 tips to lighting up your marriage again. I really tried to dig deep and come up with some creative ways that wouldn't be your typical if you listen to a marriage podcast and someone's telling you how to improve your marriage. So these are things that you can do right now that do not require the other person. Let's go. Tip number 1, don't tell yourself the bad story. So I know for years, there were stories for me that were running the show that were like, oh, well, he never does this, or I just don't feel this way. I just don't feel loved, or whatever it was. And when we were working with our coach, it was a time to really look at those stories and to examine them, but it was also a time to start creating new stories. And so there's a balance between acknowledging what's going on for you and the story that is there, or maybe how you are feeling, and letting that be continually on repeat in your head, because what you look for, you find more of, right? So you want to identify, first of all, the story that is there. Like, what is the story running the show for you that's on your head in repeat when you see them, when they don't do something, when you feel let down? Like, what is the story about your marriage, about them? You probably have multiple. So first of all, identify those. And then number 2, every time that story wants to pop up and run the show, you need to replace it with something new. So what is the new story you're going to start telling yourself? This might sound like brainwashing. Guess what? All of our beliefs are brainwashing. You get to choose the reality that you're living in. And just because you're believing one story right now and you're finding evidence for it does not mean the story that you want to be true isn't true, because guess what? There are other stories that are ultimately true for you about them and about the relationship. You're just not seeing evidence for it right now because you're only focused on one. There is evidence for the opposite right now in your person, in your marriage. Guarantee, unless you're married to some narcissistic abuser who's like abusing you, not talking to that person. I'm talking to normal people in a normal marriage who are just feeling like they've lost the spark and wanting to like turn some things on in their marriage again. Okay. There is evidence for the other story in your marriage currently. You're just not seeing it. So start telling yourself a story you want to see evidence for, because what you tell yourself about, you will look for evidence for. You want something new, you got to tell yourself something new. So that's tip number 1. Number 2, check your surroundings and your circles. Okay, you know how important this is. Who are you around? Who are you listening to? I know we all have people that we're like, oh, but they mean well, or we don't want to cut them out of our life because they're a family member or they're a really close friend. And I'm not saying go cut people out of your life. I am saying you need to think about the repercussions of who you're around and what you're hearing from them about what they think about marriage or about their spouse or anything to do with that. Because even if you consciously are like, oh, but I don't agree with that, you're still subconsciously absorbing it. And it is a fact that you become the average of the 5 people you hang out with the most. So you need to look at the 5 people you hang out with the most and say, do I want their marriage? Because you're going to have it. You will be the 6th person to have the same type of marriage or outcome that they have when it comes to marriage and their relationship. So this is a 2-sided thing. It's number 1, look at it. And I'm not saying cut people out of your life, but I'm saying knowing that you become the average of the 5 people you hang out with, maybe you want to expand your circle. Maybe you're wanting to invite some new people in that you're like, man, I really want their marriage, or I love the way they talk about their spouse, or I love their perspective on it, or I love where they're going or how they're working on things. Who are you intentionally inviting into your life so that you can start expanding that influence? Because influence is happening on your relationship, whether you know it or not. Number 3, what music are you listening to? I know a lot of you are like, what? Yes, music plays a role on our energy and our emotions. It produces an energy or emotion within us. And every time you listen to music, you are choosing to produce some sort of feeling. And there might be a time and a place to feel sad and you play sad music. However, the majority of the time, guarantee you're wanting to play music that's going to make you feel more positive, make you feel more encouraged, make you feel more excited about marriage, about love. If you start paying attention to the words of the music you're listening to, you might be surprised, because a lot of the songs that you're like, oh, I just liked it, I thought it was a good beat or a good tune, all of a sudden you start listening to the words and they're talking about like divorce or being cheated on or breaking up or like whatever it is. you are subconsciously taking that in. Again, it's a subconscious thing. Even if you're not consciously listening to it or agree with it, your subconscious mind is always listening and taking that in, and it's going to affect how you feel, the story that it's looking for and supporting, right? So it goes back to bullet point number 1. So just think about that. What music are you listening to? If you need to, no, not if you need to. If you want to, get yourself into more of a positive mood with your marriage, with your man, with feeling in love again. Make a playlist of all the music that you listened to when you guys were dating and you fell in love, or even your wedding, like what the music was that you played there, because it will instantly take you back to those feelings. And you will start feeling that way and be like, oh, I totally remember that, or that was so good, or oh, this was our wedding, it was so special, right? It's going to put you in a certain mood towards your partner. So do that. Number 4, create a vision, visualize. So I love to turn on like inspiring playlists. I find inspiring music all over Spotify, between like, I mean, gosh, there's so many different ways to find it, but a great way to find it is soundtracks. There's a ton of soundtracks for movies on Spotify or whatever you listen to. And you can literally put together a playlist that's just really beautiful, inspiring music. And then I put on headphones, I listen to it, I close my eyes, and I let my mind create a movie of what I want in my life. Now, for this topic specifically, we're talking about your marriage. So let it create a movie about your marriage, about how you want to feel, about how you want to interact, about how you want to be seen or loved or love them, right? I first started doing this before we ever moved to Arizona. And I pictured not just our marriage, but I pictured where we lived and the warm air and us like playing together and like the love and the laughter there. And lo and behold, things started moving that direction because, again, the story that you're creating in your mind, you're going to start looking for evidence for. It's a subconscious thing. So the more you can create a picture in your mind of what you want, the more you will naturally start to create it, and you will create those feelings again in your body, because when you're visualizing this, you're going to feel that. And the more you can create those feelings in your body, the more you can start aligning with that state of being, and it becomes your norm. So you want to visualize on a regular basis. And then when you're visualizing, you can ask, like, how have I been loved by this person? How have I been accepted by this person? How have I been pursued by this person? How have I been supported by this person? And actually look back over the history of your relationship and find where you've already felt the things that you want to feel, where they have given you those things that you are wanting from them, because so much of the time we're just used to seeing where they're falling short that we forget to look back and see where they have come through for us in those ways. But we have history with them, and they have. And when you can remember that, it will again reinforce the story that it's possible to do that again. And it will help you to realize that you do in fact have that in your relationship. Instead of just seeing the glass half full, you're going to start seeing the glass, or sorry, instead of seeing the glass half empty, you're going to start seeing the glass half full. Better questions always give you better answers. So instead of constantly asking yourself, well, why don't they do this? Or why do I have to be the only one? Or blah, blah, blah. Those are crappy questions. They're going to give you crappy answers. Ask your brain, which is a computer. It works for you to give you better answers by asking it better questions. How have they come through for me? How have they loved me unconditionally? How have I been supported by them? Why did I choose this man, right? Or woman, whoever it is. Ask yourself better questions. You'll get better answers. It's going to put your focus in the right direction. What you focus on, you find more of. Number 5, start thanking them or praising them for something every single day. When you start forcing yourself to look for something good in them every single day, you're going to build a muscle that's going to cause you to see more of that. Right now, you've got a muscle in charge that's looking for what's wrong, that's looking for why they're letting you down or how they're disappointing you. You want to build up a muscle that's looking for the good, because again, it's just a muscle issue. When we have a story, when we have something going on inside of us where we're like, oh, I just don't feel this way or whatever, we put on a lens that blocks us from seeing anything else. So it's not that the other stuff isn't there. It's just that you're not seeing it. So when you force yourself to put on a new lens of, hey, I'm grateful for them. Hey, wow, they're doing this for me. I want to praise them for that. I want to tell them what a good job they're doing or how I'm proud of them. I'm thankful for them. You are going to put on a new lens and you're going to start seeing more of that. So be conscious of the lens you're putting on every single day. Every single day, we are intentional in choosing our clothes and choosing how we do our hair, intentional in our appearance, but we forget, hey, the way you're looking at your spouse, the way you're looking at the world, the way you're looking at your business is the same as putting on clothes every single day. You get to choose the lens that you're putting on. So start practicing building a new lens by looking for something different every single day to thank them for. This might feel inauthentic at first. Guess what? Building new stories does feel inauthentic at first. It's not because it's inauthentic. It's because you are used to what's familiar. But just because it's familiar doesn't mean it's what you want. So it doesn't mean that it's inauthentic. It's just not what you're used to. But you get to tell yourself, guess what? I'm building something new. I'm creating a new story. I'm creating a new lens. I'm creating a new marriage. I get to have what I want. That goes back to point number one. What's the story you're telling yourself every single day? So start telling yourself a different story. And then here's all these other ways to start backing up that new story. I promise what you look for, what you focus on, you will find more of. That's what we're doing right now. That's how you're going to bring the spark back to your marriage and light up your marriage again. If you love this episode, share it on Instagram, tag me. I would love to see and hear your feedback. It means so much to me to hear from people that are listening to the podcast, and it's just a small way of giving back. Or share it with a friend. Send it to someone you know that really wants to improve things in their marriage and bring back that spark again. All right, I will see you guys on the show next week.